So Tna Impact took place once again in Orlando, Florida. The show starts with Eric Young coming to the ring. Young says that having the world title symbolizes how much he busted his ass. He says that he's going to represent the fans and defend the belt the way they want him to. Then Dixie Carter comes to the ring. She puts Young over for his accomplishment and takes credit for it. Then she tells him that when the sauce to get him fired was bubbling, she cooled it. Dixie grabs Young's beard and says that the idea of a wrestler with a beard is hers and that she should be paid for it. Young tells Dixie that Montel Porter runs the show and that she no longer has any juice. But she tells him that she's still the company head and that he represents her. And he'll be her bitch. Then Bully Ray comes to the ring. Bully Ray puts over Young as a shining example of what up-and-comers should strive to do when dealing with crappy management. Dixie tells him that she's still bent over the double cross. And Bully Ray sends her the subliminal message that he's going to put her through the wood. Bully Ray tells Dixie to get, and she gets. He tells the fans that they have a supportable champion, and he gives Young the stamp. This segment should have been about Eric Young putting himself over completely, thus starting the build of credibility himself. The fact that Bully Ray had to come out and put Young over completely contradicts that, and it shouldn't have been that way. Dixie's presence only made it worse, as she took the shine away from Young with her irritating dribble. However, it was a decent start to building Young's credibility as champion. So then we have a women's street fight, non-title. Madison Rayne versus Velvet Sky. Okay match. The match ends with Angelina handing Velvet a trash can over the top rope. Velvet charges with the trash can toward Madison in the corner, but Madison moves out of the way. Velvet turns, and Madison kicks the can, which knocks Velvet and the can to the mat. Madison picks up the can and slams it on Velvet's back 3 times. Velvet charges her, but Madison knocks her down with the can again. Then she throws it at Angelina and misses. Madison sets up for a spear, but Angelina hits her from behind with a kendo stick. Angelina enters the ring and tosses the stick to Velvet. Then, Angelina charges Madison, but Madison lowers herself and pulls down the middle rope, which causes Angelina to go through the ropes to the outside. Velvet charges Madison with a kendo stick, but Madison runs forward, ducks, and comes back with a spear, if that's what that was. She pins Velvet for the 3. The winner of the match, Madison Rayne. The match was pointless, and it didn't do anything as far as building any reason to be interested in the eventual title match. As much as Angelina was involved, this might as well have been a handicap match. It was pointless. So then we see Eric Young and Bully Ray backstage. Young thanks Bully Ray for the stamp, and Bully Ray says that his words were true. And then he tells Young that he's going back to the strip club to drop some more dollars on the chicks. He leaves, and then Young is confronted by Abyss. Abyss demands a title shot, and Young gives it to him, but under the stipulation of a Monsters Ball match. Where's Magnus? One would think that we would have seen him by now. Why didn't he confront Young about regaining the title? And more importantly, if Abyss is supposed to be attached to him, why would he allow Abyss to go after quote unquote his title? So then we see Ethan Carter III and Rockstar Dud. Skip. Dud brings Ethan down and dilutes his credibility. Skip. So then we see Montel Porter in the ring. Porter puts over Eric Young for sticking to the path that took him to the world title. He says that Samoa Joe has made himself absent from the show and that he won't communicate with him. Porter says that Joe is pissed and he wants to talk with Joe about the situation, but then Austin Aries comes to the ring. Aries says that he hasn't done shit since lockdown, and he uses Porter's company platform principles to state that being out of the mix has gotten him hot, that having a 10-man gauntlet match without him was bullshit, and that he wants to hear Porter's explanation. Porter tells Aries that he got what he got because he turned on him and joined Rude's team at Lockdown. Aries doesn't want to hear Porter cry about that, so Porter tells him that if he wants it, they can go. Aries says that he will, but he'll do it next week, and then he leaves. Positive. We see Aries for the first time in 6 weeks. Potential negative. After Aries' match with Porter, how long will it be before we see him again? Aries has heat on him because of backstage fuckology, and this has cost him a consistent presence on the show. Aries gave a solid promo, so he should beat Porter and be seen more often. If he loses to Porter, how long will it be this time? So then we have the World Tag Team Championship. The glorified jobbers defending against the American Wolves. Decent match. Short. The match ends with the jobbers whipping David Richards into the ropes. Richards ducks the double blow, then ducks Robbie E's single blow, which causes him to nail Mr. Duh. Robbie E grabs Richards around the waist from behind, but Richards executes a roll through and makes the tag to Eddie Edwards. Edwards knocks down the jobbers with clotheslines. Mr. Duh seizes Edwards and lifts him up, but Edwards flips himself over Mr. Duh. Then he executes a double hurricanrana on the jobbers. He takes Mr. Duh into the corner and goes into machine gun chop mode. Robbie E charges, but Edwards sidesteps him and delivers the same damage. He whips Robbie E to the opposite corner and hits him with a flying elbow. Edwards comes back toward Mr. Duh, but gets an elbow to the face. Richards re-enters the ring, and the American Wolves execute the alarm clock, which sends Mr. Duh to the outside. They follow that up with a double foot stomp on Robbie E. Edwards goes for the pin, but Zema Ion comes into the ring and slams his laptop across Edwards' back. The referee calls for the bell. The winners of the match, by disqualification, the American Wolves. Patience. Richards and Edwards will win the belts at Sacrifice. But still, this is getting monotonous. It's the same story that needs a different ending, and that ending will happen on April 27th. So then we have a handicap match. Ethan Carter III and Rockstar Dud versus Jeff Willow. Decent match. The match ends with Jeff Willow delivering the Twist of Fate to Rockstar Dud and getting the 3. Ethan gets on top of Willow and punches away. He goes down on Willow's leg with elbow drops. Ethan prepares to lock in his leg bar submission when Kurt Angle runs down to the ring. Angle and Ethan stare at each other. Ethan goes for a punch, but Angle ducks it and puts him down with a German. Ethan bails. After the commercial break, Angle takes the mic and tells Ethan that he's going to break his mind before he breaks his bones, and puts him in a meat sheet. The match would have been better if it had been Ethan versus Willow, because it would have been taken more seriously without the attempted comedy injection by Dud. Angle was solid, and now the program between him and Ethan can be rebuilt for their eventual match at Slammiversary. Sacrifice would be too soon to do it. Build the anticipation and have it happen at Slammiversary, which is where it needs to happen. So then we see Robert Roode backstage. Roode is asked why he's mixing it up with Bully Ray and involving tables. He says that since Bully Ray was responsible for him not becoming a 10% company owner, he's going to humiliate Bully Ray by beating him in his own match. However, Roode challenges anyone except for Bully Ray to face him in a tables match. Roode's focus on this is understandable, but why didn't he address his issue with Dixie Carter? He was taking orders from her last week to put Bully Ray through the wood, yet he says nothing about her being responsible for his not getting his 10%. Dixie is a main part of that blame that Roode has placed on her for not getting his 10, yet he says nothing about it. So then we see a video segment on Sonata. He takes a jog during the early morning hours, and the subtitles reveal how important it is for him to prove himself to Muta and to the fans in the United States as he represents Japanese wrestling. Segments like this will continue to help Sonata because they will complement what he does in the ring, and his talent is going to get him over whether he can speak English or not. So then we see Kenny King come out onto the stage. King says that he's back because the fans asked for him. He says that he is too talented to be on the sidelines, and that it's Montel Porter's problem if he can't see that. King said that he's going to give his commentary to the upcoming second match of the best of three between Sonata and Tigre Uno, adding that he's challenging the winner for the X Division title. So then we have the second match of the best 2 out of 3 for the X Division Championship. Sonata defending against Tigre Uno. Decent match. The match ends with Sonata double underhooking Tigre and lifting him onto his shoulders, but Tigre reverses his position and executes a Hurricane Rana. Tigre hooks Sonata's legs for the pin, but Sonata kicks out. Tigre charges, and Sonata lifts him up and delivers a fireman's carry cutter. He goes for the pin, but Tigre kicks out. Sonata goes for a moonsault, but Tigre moves out of the way. However, Sonata lands on his feet. Tigre locks Sonata up and executes a capture suplex. He follows that with a saber-tooth splash and gets the 3. The winner of the match, Tigre Uno. The series is tied 1-1. TNA needs to tell Tigre to stop doing the capture suplex because he is going to seriously injure someone. He is too short to be executing that move on someone taller. Tigre put Manic on his head during their match at Lockdown, and he did the same here to Sonata. TNA cannot afford to lose Sonata right now, and with the concluding match coming up at Sacrifice, Tigre has to cut that move. Obviously, Sonata will win this match because a program between him and Kenny King is the better matchup. King was solid with his promo, and the new music fits him perfectly. Sonata versus King is going to be good if it happens. So then we see Bully Ray backstage. Bully Ray is telling some unknown that he's the one to put Robert Roode through the wood. He's about to leave, but then he says, "Hoorah" to the unknown. Thanks, TNA, for letting us know that Gunner will be facing Roode instead of allowing it to be a surprise to those who don't know beforehand. So then we see Robert Roode in the ring. Roode wants whomever is going to answer his tables match challenge to come out. And shockingly, Gunner comes to the ring. Solid match. The match ends with Roode delivering a spine buster on Gunner. He picks Gunner up for the fireman's carry cutter, but Gunner hits him with an elbow to the face and escapes. Gunner picks Roode up for the fireman's carry face buster, but Roode gets out of that. Gunner headbutts him and charges the corner with a knee to the torso. Gunner delivers a slingshot suplex and positions the table in front of one of the corners. Gunner headbutts Roode, positioning him on the table. He walks to the corner and does his turnbuckle head-bashing psych up and goes to the top rope. James Storm appears and tries to disrupt Gunner, but Gunner lands a punch that sends Storm to the floor. Roode throws Gunner off the top rope, sending him onto the table, but not through it. Roode sets the table back up, picks Gunner back up, and puts him through the table with the fireman's carry cutter, with Storm in the ring watching. Winner of the match, Robert Roode. Storm pounds away at Gunner. Then Roode picks Gunner up as Storm preps his super kick. But Bully Ray comes to the ring and they leave. Roode covered up the table botch well with his quick follow-up of his finisher. The Storm-Gunner interaction proves that there will be at least one more match between them when others were saying that the Storm-Gunner program was done. So then we see Eric Young backstage. Young gives a prep promo before his Monsters Ball match versus Abyss for the title. And throughout the show, TNA showed segments featuring Young in an attempt to build his credibility as champion. It was a good start, and it will only continue well with what happens next. So then we see Bully Ray and Gunner backstage. Bully Ray poses the question to Gunner regarding his table virginity, and Gunner tells him that it was his first time going through a table. Bully Ray tells him that he's been eating tables for years. And he informs Gunner that the two of them will face Robert Roode and James Storm in a tables match next week. So this will continue to build for each of these programs. So then we have the Monsters Ball match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Eric Young defending against Abyss. Good match. The match ends with Young holding Abyss's signature plank with the nails. Young attempts to slam him with it, but Abyss grabs him by the neck and chokeslams him onto the thumbtacks on the mat. Abyss leaves the ring and grabs a board with barbed wire. He throws it in the ring and goes for another chokeslam on Young, but Young escapes by biting Abyss's hand. Abyss shoves Young, but Young comes back with a drop kick that causes Abyss to land on the wire. Young goes to the top rope and comes off with a flying elbow drop. He pins Abyss for the 3. The winner of the match, Eric Young. Show ends. This was a great start for Young. The attention is on him. Wrestlers are publicly talking about him. Fans are starting to support him as champion. However, what happens at Sacrifice still remains. TNA will look at how Young is being received from a wrestling side, but they will also look at him from a business side. Because right now, their business side is shaky. No one can deny that. All Young can do is control what he does as champion. But will TNA allow him to have that control? Sacrifice. I'm Tazmar 2002, and that was my Tna Impact Analysis for April 17th, 2014. If you're listening to me on YouTube, you can leave your comments below. Click the like or dislike button, and if you subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. If you're listening to me on the Wrestling News Talk Facebook page, you can leave your comments below and click the like button if you like what I've been saying. If you have any questions or comments for me about TNA or wrestling in general, you can contact me on Twitter, Tazmark2002, that's Tazmark2002. And if your comments exceed the 140, get at me with an email, Tazmark2002@gmail.com. And be sure to watch the TNA Impact review that I do with Chuck P. live every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Chuck P's YouTube channel. And if you can't watch us live, you can always watch the archive. Decent show. Decent show. I spoke earlier about the potential of a Sonata Kenny King program. The impression of Sonata as X Division champion has been effective, and King is the perfect American opponent for him to face, since TNA is putting attention on King. I said potential because TNA's lack of commitment to the X Division has been nauseous. A Sonata Austin Aries rematch on Impact? No. The sight of any other X Division wrestlers other than Sonata and Tigre Uno as legitimate contenders? No. If TNA is going to make Sonata a big deal, he needs contenders. We've seen them in the past, and we should see them again along with those that we haven't seen. If you put a horse in a race, you let it race with other horses. You don't race the horse by itself. Showcase your division and let your horses race. I'm Tazmar 2002. Gone.